Star Wars Outlaws has massively underperformed. Now, this isn't something that's going to come as much of a surprise considering the conversation across the year. However, I did want to do a bit of an overall postmortem on the game because both of us have finished it. The game's a bit of a mixed bag. There are a lot of positives, at least I would say, overall. But the game's sales are apparently around 1 million units, coming in at about a tenth of what an average Ubisoft launch month would be if you compare it to something like an Assassin's Creed or the general internal expectations that Ubisoft had for the game overall. Speaking of overall, Ubisoft have had a shocking year. I put together a report, you can go watch it, speaking to various members of Ubisoft, current and former, under anonymity, talking about what it's like working for the company across the last few years, etc. And they've got things like Assassin's Creed Shadows being delayed. They've got various internal strife around the leadership of Yves Guillemot and how he can't seem to focus on any one thing for longer than a given afternoon at this point, leading to various issues with titles like Star Wars Outlaws. However, I do want to focus on why the game failed so hard. And maybe that's just Star Wars fatigue. I do think that a lot of the blame lies with the marketing itself. We're not going to do full spoilers for the game, but there is a mission in the game that was in one of the early trailers where you go into the pit of the Sarlacc, you go into a dead Sarlacc, which is like a giant alien creature from the movies, and you have to retrieve an item and come back out again. This was spotlighted as one of the missions to show off in the lead up to the game, and we'll get to some of the other gameplay sequences that had really bad AI, and it seemed like an unfinished build. There's a whole wider thing as well about Ubisoft committing to finish the game going forward. But I think missions like that was such basic fetch quests did a huge disservice to the reality of just what you can do in the game. And I don't know if what you think about the way the game was marketed overall.
Yeah, I mean, we said this on the podcast, of which we did a big spoiler cast. If you do want full spoilers,
please go subscribe
over on the What Culture Gaming podcast. But yeah, I was also baffled by that when I hit that side mission, which it is. It's a kind of a prominent side mission, but it's not like that mission that they showed off, said that word a lot, is part of the main narrative or anything. Yes. I just think it was not the right foot to put forward because it is kind of basic. It is stuff that we've seen before, and we even did a preview video on it when that trailer dropped. And I think at the very least, me and Ewan were looking at it going, oh, this might not be as good as we were hoping it would be. It looks a bit basic. Those explosions don't look great. This dialogue isn't all that amazing. But while the other missions in the game, I don't think are radically better than it. It's not like a leveling up from a 5 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 in terms of design or writing or what have you. I do think they are markedly better. I do think there are better missions and better scenarios you could have marketed pre-release that made the gameplay look a little bit more spectacular, made the writing look a little bit sharper, properly established the dynamics at the heart of the game with the factions and what have you. And rather than just saying, oh yeah, you're on Tatooine, you're going to Sarlacc, you know that, remember? Yeah, he's a Jawa, you're getting maybe double cross, you're getting the tooth, he's an explosion, he's a shootout in a spaceport, stuff that you've seen before a million times in Star Wars. And it's not like that, like we said, the game doesn't lean on that stuff. Tatooine is in there, but Tatooine is awesome. Tatooine made non-believers like you and I, Scott, who are kind of over desert planets and over Tatooine as a location, it re-inspired that love we have for it again, I think we could say.
Yeah, there's a few things with this where, like, overall the way that they presented the game just feels like they didn't focus on the best parts of it, but in themselves they don't come until after this entire opening. I didn't mind it, but like there is a notable conversation around the pacing of the game that you are railroaded into a set of specific missions that are a lot more Uncharted-like, and I wonder if internally Ubisoft thought that was a good hand to play, remind people of Uncharted. There's not been an Uncharted in a good few years, so why not go down that route when the strength of the game is more in the open world. It is in overhearing intel down the cantina, going to then do some side missions or talk to various NPCs, upgrading your speeder, your blaster, having a card game when you return to town or whatever, like Red Dead or something like that. And I feel like, in Ubisoft now have got out there and said that they are addressing fan feedback. They actually want to change the pacing across the introductory parts of the game, which is a hell of a potential change. It's mentioned as part of Yves Guillemot's internal memo to the various departments putting the game together, that they think that by doing so, they will make Outlaws a lot more appealing. So I wonder how much they expedite to get to the best parts of the game. Because it is in all those different parts coming together. Like the most fun I had with Outlaws was across the opening planet and was across Tatooine, where you were just living the life of this scoundrel, this person screwing over the different factions, living in that world. And I don't know if they need to redo the whole campaign or whatever, but there's mention of sorting the checkpoints. A big criticism when it was instant fail stealth. They want to redo the checkpoints. They want to sort the enemy AI, which is quite simplistic in various different places. You can run past quite a lot of enemies. The negatives are very easy to point to, and I wonder whether it is actually surmountable at all. Like, does this recover? Part of Insider Gaming's various reports on this, is that internally it's not expected to do that much better, even though there is a mandate to try and bring it back.
I don't think it does. I think it's issues, which again we went over extensively in the spoiler cast. Yeah, isn't that right? No. I think it's like, yeah, you can paper over those cracks early on, especially. You can maybe redo the stealth so it's not that arbitrary and often punishing insta-fail, which never feels good, even if you have the best stealth mechanics in the world. I find if you get immediately spotted and then you push back to the checkpoint, that has never really felt good. We've complained about that style of stealth for a long time. Even if you fix that, even if you change the pacing and got to the good stuff quicker early on, I think for me the fundamental issues of the game in that it does a lot of things well, but very few things amazingly well or outright great. I don't think you can solve those issues without like 2 more years of development, without making a full sequel and building off the foundations that you've mentioned here. Because I think, honestly, for me, the biggest reason why the game hasn't sold is that some of its biggest offenders, you and I included, who have had a great time with it, who do point out the good parts of the overall experience, even you and I didn't pay for it. You know what I mean? Like,
not full price.
And we didn't get it for a review copy, so it's not like we got it through our jobs, but we both used the Ubisoft Plus subscription that you can get on Xbox and PC, where you pay 15 quid for a month and then you get to play the newest games like Outlaws. Like, I felt comfortable doing that.
Yes.
As much as we have bigged it up, I wouldn't pay 70 quid for it at the end of the day. I think that price point is, you expect a level of quality beyond a 7 or even 8 out of 10 experience or product when you're putting that amount of money down. And I don't think Ubisoft, not just for this project, but their past few big open world games, I don't think they've justified that they're going to give you a experience worth 70 quid, like even outside of the gameplay formulas that we are maybe a bit sick of. You've got the bugs that are associated with Ubisoft games. You've got the sometimes aggressive monetization of even single player games. You've got a lot of factors working against it that makes, I think, people hesitant to go, well, 70 quid's a lot of money, $70 is a lot of money, and we've got all of these other games to play. Why not wait until a sale? I think if you got this for 30 quid, I think you'd have a great time with it, but that is a big jump.
No, and also, like I said, like I personally think the marketing is one of the biggest failures, because there are a lot of things to champion that just were barely present in the marketing itself. But the Ubisoft Plus thing is fascinating, because that is one of the many things that Yves Guillemot has sort of tried to pivot into: the live service push, the Game Pass push. You saw Ubisoft try and partner with Xbox. There's a version of Ubisoft Plus, the lower tier, that's available as part of Game Pass. But then they have their premium tier, the one that has the new releases on, like Star Wars Outlaws. Assassin's Creed Shadows was going to be on there until it got delayed, but it will be next year. And that assumption of trying to steer into this premium monthly service, and is that the thing? Is that what everybody wants? And then not really marketing it very much. Like, neither of us realized that Outlaws was on there until like a week before launch or whatever. And I feel like Ubisoft have barely, championed or got out there enough marketing behind Ubisoft Plus to be like, this is the thing that lets you play these premium games and test them out in a way. But both of us just paid for a month. Had 1 month. Like, an Ubisoft game is rarely, at least for me, something I'm going to play for more than a month if I focus on it. So it's like, right, I did 1 month on this. I set a reminder. I cancelled Ubisoft Plus again, and I'm back out. So I paid £15. I played the game, and that's it. And even that, which could be viewed through a business lens of abusing that system, even that isn't part of the conversation. No. People aren't doing that. People aren't necessarily aware that they can do that to at least try the game.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, I think to even suggest, in my opinion, that it's like a loophole or abusing the system, to me is kind of crazy. It's like, well, what has the servers got to keep that retention, to keep me continuing to pay for a game subscription service? Like, that has always been one of the killers, I think, of the publisher-specific subscription services, be that an EA Play or an Ubisoft Plus or what have you, is that it's not like a Game Pass or a PlayStation Plus where you have this huge selection and there's always something else. You're only realistically getting an Ubisoft game like every 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And even then, it might not be something you're interested in. You might not be interested in Far Cry. You might not be interested in Assassin's Creed. You might just be a Star Wars fan. And if they're not incentivizing you to keep that subscription, I don't think they can complain that you've not spent enough. They're giving you that option. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's what you're saying.
That's what I said through the business lens. Like, they obviously don't want everybody doing 1 month at a time. They would rather keep you on, like Josh was saying.
But it is that issue that we've seen with subscription services, and how can they be profitable, especially for an Xbox. and we love Game Pass. I think it's still an amazing deal, but how can they be profitable if they're putting their biggest AAA games that cost hundreds of $millions on the servers day one? How are you recouping those financials from potential lost sales? In this case, I do think Outlaws actually gained money from the likes of you and I having that curiosity, because at least for me, like I said, I wouldn't have spent that full price on it. So it does work in that sense of word of mouth and getting people to talk about its positive qualities and getting a little bit of money on top of that. But it's clearly, I don't think that model is fit for purpose when you're dealing with these quadruple-A video games that need to return a whole lot of money. I've got more thoughts on like just the Star Wars license in general, Scott,
Right.
but I don't know if you have anything to add.
No,
to
just
that.
super quick for the quadruple-A thing. That was another thing that's mentioned in the sources that I put in the other video, is that was mentioned in a team meeting, a group meeting, the idea that we're steering into quadruple-A games, which was a term that bled through into Sea of Thieves marketing from Yves Guillemot himself. The idea that there's some sort of extremely incredible upper echelon of production, that if we just put enough bulk into the game, enough side missions, enough open world bloat, or whatever it is, we get this new quadruple-A game, which is obviously a fallacy. It feels very much like a marketing term. It's just the next logical extension of the AAA, but it didn't translate into sales. Like Sea of Thieves, no one even talks about that game anymore, and it's like it had a chunk of players, but they dropped off pretty significantly.
Sea of Thieves or Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones, that's hilarious that I got them mixed up. They are very similar in terms of pirates, but still, it didn't work as this label you could put on something. As the assumption internally would be that if we call this a quadruple-A game, it'll then do better, and that's what they're trying to do with Star Wars Outlaws. Part of the conversation is bulking the game out even more, giving it more side missions. Same with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Even though that game was so close to release, it being delayed to February, one of the notes alongside that from Insider Gaming is that they are adding more side missions, just more stuff. Just put it in there, make it bigger, make it take longer to finish. That'll somehow get us back on top.
Which is annoying, right? Because Star Wars Outlaws, one of its biggest positives, I think, is that it is more streamlined. It doesn't have the bloat of a recent Assassin's Creed. You can finish it in a month. It's not going to be a second job, and it's not going to outstay its welcome, I don't think. It's got a straightforward campaign. It has side missions and collectibles. You're probably going to get 40 hours out of it max, I'd say, on a first run.
Also, just to throw in, the upgrade system in Outlaws, I want to champion that really super quick. It's not loot-based. You're doing specific goals. You're getting upgrades based on gameplay, based on the skills that you're putting in, Skyrim style or whatever. You're going to specific markers on the map for specific item upgrades or skill upgrades. You're meeting specific characters. It all works really well. I just want to put that in there.
No, it's a good point. We talk about this again, plugging in for the third time in the spoiler cast. But the frustration with Star Wars Outlaws is that even though we have a lot of criticisms of it, or at least I do, it does so much well. It's incrementally improving the Ubisoft formula. I think that has been incrementally being improved over the past year or so. And I worry that, with its sales failures, they're going to revert back to what they did previously, thinking that would work. Whereas I think that's why this is failing, because you don't know that there have been incremental positive changes until you play a game like this. I think a lot of people assume that it is just the Ubisoft formula. Again, you talked about that trailer. It looks like the Watch Dogs takedowns. It looks like the same shooting that you see in everything, the same basic stealth that we've had in so many of these third-person games from this company. But there are interesting ideas at the core of it. It just is clashing with the classic mold, and I think now especially, not just in gaming but across media, we're seeing those formulas start to deliver diminishing returns. You can't just do the same thing over and over again, whether that's in the entertainment movie sphere with Star Wars as a license, with Marvel as a license, with Ubisoft as a formula, even with stuff like, Sony and what have you, like those established formulas now. I think people are eager for something new, something fresh, something they haven't played before, because you're looking at Star Wars Outlaws and you're looking at the trailers, you're looking at the marketing and thinking, why would I want to pay 70 quid right now for something that you've kind of already played before, when again there's so much vying for your attention?
Yeah, we've been saying that for the entirety of the last generation and most of this one as well. I think it's why something like Space Marine 2 is doing so well. Like, yes, that has a foot in the old school in terms of something like how a Gears of War used to play, or the 360 era of cover shooters, but it is taking that next step forward. It plays better than a lot of Gears of War games or a lot of third-person shooters, and it's that evolution of core mechanics, not just replication, that I think is why that game is right now top of the charts and doing so well. But overall, just to round out like a post-mortem on Star Wars Outlaws, maybe this body comes back to life, but at the minute it's not doing very well. Like I said, it's coming in about a tenth of the sales that Ubisoft expected, and maybe their changes to this across the next few months fix things. But the roadmap they put out, even by November on the roadmap, it's still just quality of life fixes. It's still just basic stuff. And this was also a game that launched where the deluxe edition had a save deletion bug. So the people that paid the most for the game had to restart 2 days in. And it's like, this is insane, really. This is the reality of gaming at this level of production from such a veteran storied studio.
You talk about like the sales expectations for a game like this internally from Ubisoft selling, trying to hit those Assassin's Creed levels of 10 million plus copies. And I think, well, are we in different realities? Are we in different universes? To me, that comes from the idea of Ubisoft formula, Star Wars license, excuse to print money, rather than looking at the quality of the product that you're selling, which is good, but is it good enough? Like I keep saying, I think the industry over the past 5 years has learned a really hard lesson, and that lesson is established wider entertainment licenses are not guaranteed to work at a gaming sphere. That might be the case once in the day, but you can take the Avengers at its peak and make Marvel's Avengers, and it can not make the money. You could take a lucrative brand like Guardians of the Galaxy, even make a pretty damn good game with it,
That's great,
and not make that much money. You've seen EA and Star Wars have this tumultuous relationship over the past 10 years, which is now happening again with Ubisoft in Star Wars. It costs a lot to get these licenses. You pay a lot in dividends and residuals, and those contracts are hard to pin down. And I don't know if they're worth it, because it makes that level of risk so high, which is ironic, because you would be thinking if you get Star Wars, if you get Marvel, it doesn't matter about the risk because you're going to be guaranteed to make money, but you still got to put in that sort of finished product and make that thing appealing to people, because we're smarter than just going, I like that thing, I'm going to spend all my money on it.
That's definitely the mentality that is now across the board. I think Hollywood's realizing that at the minute. But I think in the history of gaming, they've never, in terms of the publisher studios trying to make a quick buck, got one over on the gamers overall. Like, maybe we'll step up and we'll buy something day one, we'll have faith in a certain product, but word spreads very fast that something is broken or not worthwhile or whatever. Like, it has to be worth playing. Yeah. It's always going to be in the game. It's always going to be in the final product. The fact that it is X brand is not just going to carry something by itself. And I feel like, like you said, everyone's getting very tired of just the brand's approach. And so maybe some of that permeates in here as well. But overall, we'll see whether this thing comes back to life.